Velkommen til folkemødet her på Scene 11 og den internationale scene. Jeg hedder Lisbeth Pilegaard, og jeg er direktør i Dansk Institut for Parti og Demokrati, og vi kører hele den her formiddag med forskellige former for demokratiorganisationer. Og jeg kommer til at skifte over i engelsk, fordi vi har engelske gæster med os i panelet, og vi har også engelske gæster og kollegaer og partnere med os ude omkring i verden. So welcome to everyone here in Bornholm who are here in the tent, at the island, at the Democracy Festival, and welcome to you who are logging on from different parts of the world. We have an exciting 45 minutes discussion now, debate with members of the Danish Parliament, with a cybersecurity expert, and with a founder and a expert in communication all the way from New Zealand. My name is Lisbeth Pilegaard. I'm the Executive Director of the Danish Institute for Parties and Democracy, and we work together with the Danish political parties to support democracy globally. We wanted to take up this session because we think it's important that everyone participates in our democracy, and that means also women and men participate and can participate equally in the political life. Reality is that many women experience a lot of harassment, physical violence even, and psychological violence and digital violence when they enter into the political sphere. There's been many reports and so on. The Nordic Council has just commissioned a report called The Angry Internet that just underlines that the risk of women engaging in politics publicly have 50% of them are all being aggressively accused, attacked on the internet. So the environment for women engaging in politics is very, very complex. It's not, and it doesn't provide a conducive room for all of us to engage. That's why we invited these wonderful women to discuss with us today, and I'll start with, hopefully we'll have our guest from New Zealand online very soon. We have Rosa Lund, member of the Danish Parliament, Red Green Alliance. Welcome to you.
Thank you.
And we have you, Maia Lorentzen, cybersecurity expert, among other things, founder, entrepreneur, and also author of a book that you will be talking about here at our session. And then we hope to be able to connect with New Zealand. As you see, technology is sometimes a bit challenges, but we just had a previous session where we connected all the way to Kathmandu in Nepal, and it worked. So I'm sure that the technicians are working on it shortly. I'll start with you, Rosa Lund. You've been a member of a political party for quite a while.
Yes.
You've been active in the public sphere. You've been a politician, and you are now a member of the Danish Parliament. Tell us a bit about your experience of being a young female politician.
Well, first of all, thank you for taking up this very important subject.
Hello, Jacqueline
I
speaking.
have experienced that. How can I put this? I started in Parliament in 2011, and I work with education and childcare policy. You know, slow, cozy, nice subjects that we can all agree on the baseline, that education is a good thing. Then, in
I'm just
19,
unmuted.
after the election, I was
Can you hear?
I
Can you hear
became
me?
spokesperson for migration policy. And it changed like that on my Facebook page.
Okay, sounds good.
So I have experienced that there is a lot of hate against women who has opinions on migration politics. And I would say that I think that Pernille Vermund and Mette Thiesen from the right wing experience just as much hate as I do, but from the other side.
Yeah, I do.
But there is something about being a woman and having opinions on migration politics that just make your Facebook profile blow up. I actually don't longer read on my own Facebook page. I make of course, my own statements, but because there is so much hate and threats on my life, I don't no longer read it myself. And actually, Maia, helped a small group of people by telling them how to moderate my Facebook page so that it is a nice place to be, because it is not when I open it up, and I can no longer read those things myself. And I have also noticed that I put there is a lot of stuff that I don't do anymore because I'm afraid of being threatened. I'm afraid of hate speech. So there is, if I get an example is, I met some young children who are cousins to some of the Danish children who are in Syria right now in the camps, and we got them home, and we are just waiting for the Danish government to actually get started. But I met some of their cousins, and their children, I think they were maybe 8, 10 years old, and they were like, "Yo, Rosa Lund, let us take a picture." Of course. And we took a picture, but I didn't post it on my Facebook because they are children. And I just know the second I posted a picture of children with a bit darker skin color than mine, then it would blow up. And I felt the need to protect those kids. But then I thought afterwards, well, usually I'm not that kind of person who respond to threats like that. But I don't want it to, you should not talk to me that way, but definitely not to children. Yeah. And I just felt the instinct need to protect them, so I never posted the picture.
Yeah, I know, Rosa, we also talked about, just to have to exemplify what kind of statements is it that I know you don't read them, but you did read them previously, and someone else is now reading and perhaps protecting yourself.
Yes.
Do you have a few of those examples that you wanted to share with us?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I think that would be interesting just for the audience, because sometimes it becomes perhaps a bit abstract. Well, that's just the environment. I mean, come on, can't you take a discussion? But I think it's important that we actually show and depict some of those statements that a younger female politician would meet. It could also be someone else saying, but if you engage publicly in discussions on politics, you have a big risk of being trolled or attacked.
I actually screenshot a lot of the comments, of course, because they have to get screenshot when you report it to the police. But me and Pernille Skipper from my party, we often talk about, let's screenshot all the hate speech and then just make a big exhibition at City Hall so that people can see what we see every day. So maybe people will know, but I think the most important is that Facebook knows. I think they know, but they don't do anything. But here is an example, and I'm not quite sure how to translate it. Can I do it in Danish?
You can do it in Danish, I will help.
Beskeden er sådan her. Der er 3 beskeder, fordi en var åbenbart ikke nok for den her person. Kæft, du er klam, din ko. Ny besked. Kig dig over skulderen. Ny besked. Der kommer borgerkrig i Danmark på grund af dig. Og det er en venlig trussel. Altså, jeg kan godt finde nogen, der er værre.
I think you should try and give us a few other examples. And just to say now, we have JACQUELINE Commerce with us all the way from New Zealand. Welcome to you, JACQUELINE. Great to have you with us. I know it's fairly late in New Zealand.
Yes, thank you for having me. It's not too bad, but it is Saturday night.
Great. And where are you in New Zealand?
I'm in Auckland.
You're in Auckland. Great. We just started the session here with our panelists in the tent. We have Rosa Lund, who is the member of the Danish Parliament, and we have Maia Lorentzen, a cybersecurity expert. Rosa is sharing a few examples in Danish of what she experiences of statements and harassment on the net. And Rosa, you might want to share a few others.
Yes, this is actually from Instagram, which in many years was my safe space, because we go to Instagram to be happy. That's no longer the case, because I got this one. Din argumentation holder ikke, din super klamme psykopatluder. Du vil forære alle midler til islamiske terroristsvin. Du får sprøjteorgasmer over at indføre sharia i Danmark, og så er der intet at give til ældre, børn, eller øvrige arbejdsomme danske skatteyder. Du fortjener at dø en langsom og smertefuld død af uhelbredelig kræft, og så sådan 2 fede bræk-emojis.
Yeah. So Jacqueline, just and for the audience listening in who are not speaking Danish, very violent, threatening language, sexualized language, and a hope for Rosa Lund, an MP, to die slowly of cancer. I'm not going to translate the rest because it's right horrendous. And these are just a few examples, I presume, of what you're experiencing.
Yes, here's another one. It's short. Hold dig op, en hjernedød kælling. Håber du bliver analknippet af 100 IS-perkere, din lorteso, for helvede.
Yes, and another example of a very sexual, violent statements, hoping that Rosa Lund will be violent raped by 100 ISIS fighters. I think we'll stop the examples here.
Yes.
I think they illustrate very well what you and many other women politicians, not only in Denmark, but globally are experiencing every day when they engage in their public service and function as a politician, be it locally, be it at national level, or if they engage at all in the public sphere. Maia, I'll turn to you. I mean, for you, this is probably not surprising, but it's still quite uncomfortable. And I know that you've been following this area and this problem for quite some years. You've been writing a book about it. But tell us a little bit more about why have we come to this place in our society where we otherwise are proud of our democracy, we have dialogues, we create other kinds of forums, that we on the internet has turned out to be such a place for very dark and aggressive dialogue?
Well, you can say the internet has both given people a platform to speak their mind, which is very positive. Before, there were a lot of gatekeepers. If you wanted to write to a traditional media, you have to have the editor to take your letter, and they had to print it. But now we all have a platform, and that has brought some really positive things for our democracy, for a lot of activists, that you can actually speak your mind and you can create a platform and spread awareness and engage in debate in ways that you couldn't do before. But it has also considerably lowered the price and effort for harassment. So imagine that Rosa was active 20 years ago, and if somebody wanted to threaten her, they actually have to write a letter and post it, you know. And this means that because you can just now read something that Rosa has said, get angry, not have any filters, and just write her a threatening message and then go about your day, because that's usually how people feel about writing these things. That means that it's much easier to participate in this harassment. And what we know from writing our book together with my 2 co-writers, Kontrol tæmmes, it means control be tamed, it is there are certain mechanisms when people write threats or harass or hate speech online that they don't think it's as serious as if it happened face-to-face, for instance. If you confront people with writing threats or writing hate speech, they'll be like, oh, but it's, you know, I didn't mean it, and it's just online, and you know, you can't see the other person that takes it in, so you don't take it as seriously. And that means that there's a lot more of it. But also, and we have to be aware of this, especially when it comes to politicians, journalists, activists, a lot of the cyber harassment is also organized. So it's not just somebody who gets angry and writes a message, you know, in the heat of the moment. We also have organized so-called troll armies or trollehære, people who, you know, they're targeting specific politicians, specific activists, specific journalists to scare them off the internet and to make them become silent. And we can also see that this is often targeted at women. It's often targeted at minorities, where you harass them specifically for being women. So a lot of the, you know, the sexualized language that Rosa experiences, you know, the getting raped and that she's a bitch and so on, that is the kind of hate speech and threats that are only directed at women. And the same goes for if you're a gay person or if you're an ethnic minority, you get racism or you get homophobia. And this type of harassment, which is directed at who you are and not your opinions, multiple studies show that this hurts you more, and it has a bigger tendency to make you shut up or enable like self-censorship. You'll be like, oh, I'm actually not going to post this picture like you talked about, or I'm going to like rewrite this statement about immigration politics or equality, for instance, multiple times because I know people are going to come for me. And there are certain topics that trigger this kind of anger and harassment particularly. And there are also multiple studies, just a new report last week from Analyser Tal, an analysis bureau in Denmark, that shows that especially migration politics, refugees, crime, and equality debates are most likely to get people really angry and get people harassed. So it's both like the kind of people who can participate in the debate without getting harassed. People who are like women and minorities are more likely to be harassed, and the topics that are about them, so about equality or about migration or about refugees, you're also more likely to get harassed. So that means that there are certain topics and certain groups of people that have a very small circle of people who can participate without fearing for harassment and death threats and rape threats and so on.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a huge democratic problem that we have an environment that is so violent, so aggressive, and simply preventing younger people from engaging in the public sphere. Not only younger, but people with different opinion. We are here at the Folkemøde exactly for the opposite: to exchange views, to disagree peacefully, to listen to each other. And that's the whole fundament of the People's Festival. It's also the fundament of our democracy. So I'll turn now to our guest from New Zealand, from Auckland, Jacqueline. Welcome to you. Jacqueline, I know you have worked as a journalist, you worked with as an entrepreneur, and you have also worked as a founder and found new ways of how to address this problem. Tell us a bit more about your work.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you again for having me today. My name is Jacqueline, and I work for Areto Labs, and we are a tech startup that looks at trying to create more positive and inclusive online communities. So I'm not sure, am I supposed to be sharing my screen at all? I do have a presentation, but I'm not sure.
We'll go with the dialogue.
Okay, perfect. So I think as we've been talking about, social media platforms have really revolutionized how we actually engage with constituents and elected officials. But in fact, in turn, social media is actually shaping the democratic process, whether we like it or not. For candidates and elected officials, social media is a really critical campaign marketing and engagement tool to connect with voters. And unlike traditional campaign tools, social media is really affordable and it's accessible. And so in many ways, really, it's leveled the playing field for candidates without huge budgets or networks. But unfortunately, as we've been talking about, it's not always pretty. Women continue to be underrepresented in all political leadership around the world. I'm talking to you from New Zealand. It is, even though we're almost at parity here, it is an issue here. It is an issue in Canada, where I'm from. It's an issue in the US. It's an issue everywhere. And it's in part because of harassment and abuse that women experience on social media. So while women actually receive the most benefit of social media through visibility and reach, they also experience the worst consequences. And that is, as we've been talking about, a disproportionate amount of harassment and hate speech simply because of their gender. Online hate is even more pronounced for women political leaders and candidates from any equity-seeking group. So if you look at any sort of intersection in society, we know that those people are going to be attacked even more, as well as those who are highly visible in the media and anyone who speaks out on feminist issues. So one of the things that we've been looking at Areto Labs is we actually invented a Twitter bot to actually look at online hate directed directly to women political candidates. So we've invented something called Parody Bot, which is the first natural language processing based intervention that's solely designed to affect online discourse for women in politics. It's Parody Bot is a Twitter bot that uses machine learning to detect and analyze toxic tweets directed at women candidates running for office during an election period. So while we know that Facebook and Instagram are really quite toxic, we do know that a lot of the conversations happen on Twitter. And so we focused on Twitter first with our bot. So anytime a political candidate, so our bot follows all women running in an election, doesn't matter what party they're running for, the bot just follows them. And every tweet that they get sent to them, if they're added anytime, that tweet passes through a predetermined toxicity threshold, and our bot posts a positive tweet in response to improve the environment for current and future women political candidates. Ultimately, it is to provide equal opportunities for women to enter politics by removing the barrier of gender equality that toxic Twitter causes. So many of us aren't really aware of how toxic it can actually get on Twitter, and that's because our news feeds are so curated, so we see what we like. And that's just how social media is created. So part of the challenge at first is just raising awareness for the problem. So what Parody Bot does, it's a way to track, measure, analyze, and respond to online abuse and harassment of women political candidates while also bringing awareness to the problem. So far, we've deployed Parody Bot in 3 countries. So we deployed it in Canada, New Zealand, and the US during the national elections in 2019 and 2020. And we've collected and analyzed more than 12 million tweets. So that's a lot of tweets, and that's a lot of toxicity. In each of the elections, there was definitely a notable pattern in terms of which women received the most harassment on Twitter. And no surprises, the higher the candidate's profile, the more abuse that they actually receive. One of the great things about what we've learned about our technology is that after each deployment, we do run, along with collecting a lot of quantitative data, we also do user experience surveys to just get some quantitative data and understand how the bot is working. And what we do know is that our intervention works. So wherever we've run the bot, the women candidates who we've spoken to have said that they have felt supported and safer. And that's just knowing that there's an automated ally listening and responding to all the online hate. I think sometimes, someone has sent something really toxic and you don't necessarily, no one else is watching. You're reading your feed, but no one else is reading your feed, every single tweet that you're receiving. And with the bot replying to the toxic ones, candidates said that they felt like, their concerns about the toxicity and them not feeling great about receiving that tweet is actually legitimized, which really helps. So all that said, like our natural language processing machine learning models, like the one that we use for Parody Bot, they're actually trained on language that reflect the language of the empowered majority. So the way that these language algorithms are built is scraping the internet from language for the language. And oftentimes it is patriarchal, predominantly heteronormative, and Caucasian from Western society. And unfortunately, that actually perpetuates the perceptions and value judgments that continue to negatively impact marginalized communities. So really, to effectively use this technology to address online hate towards women seeking power, our models really need to reflect the future that we want, not the past that we reject. And so the onus of change must be on those who hold power. And in this case, the power lies with social media platforms and technology experts and policymakers. And it shouldn't sit with those seeking equality. And so that's what we've been doing. We're a women-owned technology company based in Canada, although I am in New Zealand, and we use machine learning to develop culture building apps and bots. But technology, again, can only go so far, and it's really critical that we make change through human partnerships and talk human to human and sort of rip back the Band-Aid and have a look and talk about it like we are here.
using technology, digitalization in this fight for a better democracy. Just for the audience, maybe a parity bot, a Twitter bot. I'm sure, Maia, you know of this because that's your line of business. But maybe just explain me a little bit for people who are not necessarily...
In Danish? Or?
Do it in English,
okay.
But you can translate if you need, just so we're all aware of what are we actually talking about.
I think, how many of the audience are on Twitter? Raise your hand if you're on Twitter. Okay, so that's more than an average Dane, because Twitter is not very common in Denmark. Most people use Facebook and Instagram, and that's also where most of our political debate happens. But the smart thing about Twitter is that it's easier to make what you call a bot, so that's a program. So there is a Twitter account that's actually a computer program that is set to find, for instance, here, Jacqueline is talking about specific politicians, so it knows to watch those politicians' timelines, and it can find out who tweets at them, so that's writing them public messages. And if they contain specific words, harassment and so on, it will reply back automatically again. So the smart thing about that is that this automates a process, which is also one of the encouragements that we give in our book. We have a set of what you can do to prevent online hate. And as a normal user, like a common user who's not a politician, we also encourage people to step in and say something when they see online harassment. Because what we know from people who experience this is that you feel very alone. And you feel that nobody kind of steps in on your behalf, because most of us, when we see like a really bad, aggressive message, for instance, on Facebook or Instagram, most of us will be like, ugh, I don't want to get in there because maybe I'll get, a lot of hate back. But to the person being attacked, for instance, Rosa, or, someone who stood up and talked about their story during Me Too or something, just seeing all this hate, it really scares you off doing it again. So what you can do is that you can go in with positive comments. You don't even have to engage people who are aggressive. You can also just say like, hey, I think you're doing great, or I think it's really brave of you. You don't even have to agree with what they're saying, but just saying, I like that you use your voice and I support you, or you can send some hearts or whatever. So this bot is smart because it automates that process and gives, like she said, you feel less alone. Yeah. You feel like there's someone else watching and being aware that you're actually being harassed.
Yeah. Rosa Lund, you hear about this technology. You think that would help you in the future? And what are the discussions within your party among the other women politicians on how to cope with the environment?
Well, I think it would definitely help. And I have noticed that when it's really bad on my Facebook, then I sometimes myself post one of the comments with hate speech. One of the comments that are saying, I'm going to kill you. And when I do that, it simply motivates kind of a love storm in my inbox. A lot of people are writing to me then, I don't agree with you on politics and refugees, but I really don't think you should get those threats and hate speech. So here is just saying that I like having a debate with you. Or just, as Maia says, a lot of heart emojis. So I think it definitely helps. And in my party, we actually have a discussion about social media's responsibilities for those hate comments. I think it's very, I would say, weird that Facebook is one of the only companies that we don't demand to follow Danish law. Like, it's illegal to threat someone. It's illegal to post pictures that are very offensive. It's illegal in Denmark. Facebook, they don't, I'm sorry, give a shit. And I think that's a very huge problem, because we would never allow companies that are like, yeah, we don't care on your tax law, or we don't care on your ethics and working environment, or stuff like that. But Facebook, like, it's like a wild, wild west, I think. And I think it's very important that we start to demand on Facebook and Instagram, other social media platforms, that they take responsibility for what's going on their platforms. Because the whole idea is to have a better conversation and to have more people participating in the debate. As Maia started saying, that Facebook has given us a lot of good stuff, but we also have this, I don't know if I should call it a side effect, because it's a very huge effect for me and my Facebook page. But I really think it's time that we in Denmark demand on Facebook that they follow Danish law.
There's a whole session there on technology and legislation,
Yes.
and I know that's being discussed many places, and we will certainly also follow that. Here we'll focus now on the situation for women in the public sphere. You had a comment, and maybe I also wanted to ask you, Maia. I know in your book you're also reflecting on what makes people get to that moment of having the need to be so aggressive and attack women digitally.
Yes. I think it's really important that we look at social media platforms and how they moderate. I was in a debate with the political head of Facebook in Denmark yesterday, and it was interesting to see they actually do remove a lot of things, but they don't have enough moderators to remove all the shit that goes on Facebook. But two other very important power factors in this problem are the politicians themselves and how they talk, and the kind of discourse that they normalize by talking about people in Denmark in a certain way, for instance. So very aggressive, very demeaning talk about, immigrants, about minorities, about Me Too. So you also normalize a certain discourse as a politician. You're a powerful person, and your followers will follow up on that and take it further. But another really important power play in this are the Danish media themselves. The way they cut and write stories, the way they put them on social media in order to create anger. I don't know if you remember the whole debate, I'm sure you do, about the guy who was filmed verbally attacking a Muslim family in Amager. And his explanation later to the media was, well, I saw a lot in the media and I hear about, how there are all these Muslim moochers and you just get angry. So it's like, where does he get his ideas from? Where does he get the hate from? Where does he get the idea that he's being attacked, that his country is under attack from Muslims? He doesn't just get them out of nowhere. He also just doesn't get them from other social media commenters. He also gets them from the Danish media and from Danish politicians. So of course, people with power, people with big platforms who peddle in certain types of stories and certain types of angles in their social media posts, what they say in the parliament or what they write in their media or who they invite into their radio shows, that is really a big part of this problem as well, because we can get Facebook to go in and remove a lot more stuff, and we absolutely should be doing that. But we should also just be aware that they designed a system that our media and politicians are also happily participating in, a system that prioritizes content that creates strong emotions and that prioritizes you spending too much time in there, depending on what's good for you. I don't think we can have very constructive debates on the kind of social media that we have now. That's not what they're designed for. They're designed to make you spend as much time as possible in there and give them a lot of data. And they're designed to, they're ad platforms. They're also designed to manipulate your emotions. And they can also manipulate you politically. So that's where we also have to go in terms of regulating big tech. It's not just removing hate speech, it's also why are the algorithms built the way they are? How do you, why are you allowed to politically advertise without oversight, for instance? All those things are an important part of the debate as well.
Thanks. I'll look for any questions or comments among the audience, and while you prepare for that, I'll just give the word to JACQUELINE on what have you seen of positively, hopefully positive changes in the political life in the countries that you've offered this parity bot to?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think for right now, when we ran the bot to New Zealand, I think having the positive conversations, because parity bot it posts positive things to try to even the playing field in terms of negativity and positivity, and try to actually build that love. that in New Zealand, the awareness was really, really great, and that people were starting to, once they saw the bot responding to hate, they also jumped along as well. And so anytime, somebody saw us saying, you go for it, thanks so much for running, other people also jumped in, which was really great. And in the first place that we ran Parody Bot, which is a province called Alberta in Canada, they're having a couple of, so that was in 2019, the prototype that we ran, and they're having in the two main cities, Edmonton and Calgary, this year they are having some municipal elections. And we've done a lot of work with trying to get more women to run for office, and Parody Bot is part of that. But there have not been so many women candidates running in both of those civic elections than there are in this year. Which is actually really exciting. I'm not sure how much has to do with what we're doing, but we do think that, by raising awareness for the issue and trying to rally people together to support women to run, and to give up, the automated ally for people, that we are seeing that's actually starting to shift, and more women are actually feeling like they're supported to run for office and use their voice.
I'll now turn it over to you if you just shortly present yourself.
Yes, hello, my name is Helene, and I'm representing a Danish civil society organization, NGO. I have a question for mostly Rosa and also all of you, I guess, because I'm wondering very much about how to react on this, because I have a political burn inside of myself as well, and I'm a candidate for the region as well, but I've been thinking a lot about how to use social media, because as it is right now, I really I'm so thankful and grateful that you are taking up the struggle, always fighting for all these so important ideas, so important in order to change our society. But also I sometimes think, is it the right way to do it? Because we kind of use social media in the same way as the others are using social media, where it becomes very... how can you say it, very sharply cut always. I think your texts are very good, so it's not on that, but you have to really make your statement very clearly in order to get through the whole, the whole atmosphere in there. And sometimes I think that it has kind of created a culture that is not very beneficial for the political debate, because it just becomes okay, I'm on this side and you're on this side, and some people, then I will sit and I'm the one who gives you the heart, when I see the other things. But it's not a conversation I like to engage in, because I think it's not bringing us anywhere. So I'm really thinking, okay, where to go with your political engagement in 2021 where social media is such a big player in our society. So I would just like to hear your thoughts about how to use social media at all. Yeah.
Great question, and do continue your political engagement. Don't give up on that. But Rosa, would you respond first?
Yes, thank you for the question. I very much agree that this is it has two sides. Because I know if I write something really sharp on Twitter, I know that it's better than a press release, because I know that TV2 News will call me and you wrote that on Twitter. Perfect. Then I get to go on TV and have a debate or have an interview about my political opinions. But on the other hand, it leaves no space for discussion or debate or nuances on Twitter. I think you can use Facebook for that, or at least you can try. And my advice would be, use your Facebook as you would like others to use it. If you don't like those short, which is mostly on Twitter, because there is also only 140 characters, but I think really use Facebook the way you would want others to use it. So if you would like to have long texts, then do that. And then I could really recommend you to have a team that helps you with the Facebook. So you don't have to read all the comments yourself. But I have a team, and I call them the dad team in Enhedslisten, because they are old enough to be my father, and they really help me with this Facebook, and they're very protective. We don't think Rosa should look at this. I'm gonna call the police. So it's very nice, but it also leaves me with a feeling that I'm not alone. Because as Maia said, when you get all these threats, you get all that hate speech, you feel like you are alone. But to have those people around me actually make me feel I'm not alone. That I can talk to them, that I can say to them, did you see that message? How many messages did you delete it yesterday? It could be a conversation about that. So that would be my recommendation. And also my recommendation is, let's not put up with that. And I know that's easier said than done, but that is what keeps me going. Like, they should not have the power to shut me up. And that could be motivational quote in
definitely.
Comic Sans on my bathroom wall. But I think, so 3 things. Don't give them that power. Use your Facebook as you would like others to use theirs, and have a team you can talk to about it.
Good. We have one more question here before Carsten Bledelius.
I'm from the Danish Helsinki Committee for Human Rights, and this is really in the center of what we're working with, because we are for free speech, free possibility of expression, but we have to go for all the misuses. We had never had a black man as the president of the United States in 8 years without the social media, for instance. We must be grateful for this new means of communication. But I was so lucky by hearing what you are doing, Rosa, in your circle there, because I think exactly the right thing. Establish criteria and identify the villains and go for it. And also tell others what they are doing actually. Those few examples you gave here were appalling and really so vulgar. And it is definitely exactly we had it in the 1930s with the Nazis. That were exactly the way in which they intimidated all those who wanted to speak up. They immigrated or ended in the Holocaust, those or in the concentration camps, those who actually dared to do it. So I think that is one of the good methods to use. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carsten Bledelius, for that comment. Are there any others and questions or comments from the audience? Otherwise, we are getting close to the end, so I'll ask...
I would just like to say that I cannot take all the credit, because actually I hired Maia 6 months ago to help my dad group in the Red Green Alliance on how to work with social media.
Yeah.
So I'm making the advertisement for Maia now.
But the example of it to give hope to other younger women who want to stand for elections is certainly important. Florence, I'll ask you to be very short on giving us your two advices on what can we advise for young people, both men and women and others, who wants to stand for election. Florence? Jacqueline, sorry, I'm changing. Jacqueline, would you give us...
That's right.
I'm giving you a new name.
My advice, I mean, we have to do it. And I think that every single one of us under the tent or in this office needs to actually just stand by everyone who wants to run and call people out. We have our technology that can do it at scale, but I think everyone needs, if you see something, say something. If you don't stand up for bullies, the bullies win. And we will never have an equal society. We will never have equity in government, and we'll never have 50% women and have a diverse and inclusive society if everyone doesn't support those seeking power who don't normally have an equal playing field. So I think social media is here to stay. Just have a really good team around you and some technology to to fight back and fight back with kindness, because I mean, I'm a glass half full kind of person, and I think we can kill hate with kindness and with just positivity.
Jacqueline, and thank you for joining us all the way from New Zealand. A short comment from you, Maia, and then I'll end with you, Rosa.
Yeah, I think Jacqueline said it all, but it's really important to get organized about these things. So that's the first step. Get organized, have people around you who can support you, and then you can decide on a strategy on how to deal with the different types of hate or harassment that you create, but you can't do it alone.
No. And Rosa?
I agree, because it's the feeling that you are alone, which is I think it's the worst form of loneliness. And you're sitting at home with your iPhone or your computer, and you just feel like, oh my God, I fucked up. I said something crazy because I get all these comments, all that hate. So you can easily think that you're all alone, but you're not. So get organized.
Get organized, and you're not alone, and we should all be standing up for everyone who wants to participate in democracy. Thank you so much for participating. We'll start again in 15 minutes with a very exciting session where we have the Belarus leader of the opposition, Svetlana Tishkatkova, online with us, and we have also activists from both Syria and Myanmar in discussing what we should do about the global democracy. So stay tuned and stay with us online and in the tent. Thank you so much.